The changes in the education sector, the way we assess students, the rise of digitalization and artificial intelligence, the changes in the learning environment, and many other unusual and controversial questions. We will be examining them one after the other in this channel. My name is Daniel Wiśniewski, and this is Education Chatter. Welcome to Education Charter. My name is Daniel Wiśniewski. I'm your host, and today I'm with a very special guest, Andria Zafikarou, who has been a teacher for 20 years. Congratulations, Andria.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Lovely to be here.
Thank you for accepting the invitation to this program. We want to talk about the teaching profession, and I thought that there's not a better person to talk about it than a person who has been in teaching profession for 20 years, and she has been renowned as and awarded a number of prizes for the best teacher in the world. So Andria, thanks a lot for finding the time.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Andria, I will ask you all kinds of difficult questions about teaching, and that's probably is the challenge that you will have to face today. I will start though, however, with your personal story. Why did you go to teaching?
That's an easy question, to be honest with you, Daniel. And the answer is it's always been there. It's always been part of my life. So for example, when I was younger, I think I started teaching when I was 5 years old, and I was teaching my toys to read, and I was their teacher, and I was reading to them and taking them out on adventures in my garden. So there was always something there about me being in an environment with children, and with having an educational voice. And I also remember coming back from school, my parents coming back from school from a parents' evening, and I think I must have been about 7 and 8, and they used to tell me, Andrea, stop telling the teachers what to do. You're very bossy. You keep on telling them how to do their jobs. So I used to obviously comment on how my teachers would teach. And then I think something else has just sprung to mind, and that was I used to always sit in a classroom, and I think inside of me I've got an interior decorating passion or DNA gene there. But I always used to think, if this is my classroom, when this is my classroom, I'm going to have the arts and crafts section over there. I'm going to have the reading corner there. I'm going to have the numeracy corner there. So I used to design my own classroom because, that was something that was my happy place. So yeah, I think it was always there, Daniel. I think that the question was when, if anything.
Mm-hmm. And you said because of course before this chat we had a chat before the chat, and you mentioned here that you recently changed jobs. So if I understand correctly, you've been teaching for 19 years in a one school, and now you're deputy principal in another school. Well, if you could tell us, your I don't know, maybe the most difficult experiences in the classroom, or any stories of this kind. What is difficult about being a teacher at times?
Oh, it is really difficult. And so I remember when I was first teaching, and I was such an eager young student, and I was in my prime. I think I was in my early 20s. And then I remember my interview when I first went for my interview, and in the UK, when there are availabilities for classroom teachers in schools, they advertise a role and then you apply for it. So I remember my interview, and I applied just when I was in the midway of my teaching qualification, and I attended my interview, and it was a disaster. And it was disaster because of the behavior management, of the behavior of the children. It was snowing on that. It's February, and it was snowing, which is quite strange in the UK. And it was wet, and it was windy. And so the children were wild, and they came into the classroom, and they were, and it was almost like a herd of buffaloes coming in, and hurricane in the classroom. And most of the lesson, my 1 hour lesson, was me trying to get them to sit down, focus, and remain, have behavior management. And that hour was the most exhausting hour, I think, of my life. And at the end of the hour, I thought, you know, there's no way I'm going to teach in this school. God, it's a nightmare. It's disaster. But then at the end of the lesson, two girls came up to me, and they were from Gujarat, and you know, they were the children who I never actually saw in the lesson because they were right in the corner and they were so quiet and hidden. And they said to me, "Miss, please stay." And so when I was offered the job, I took it because I just thought, you know, this is actually what I want to do. I want to be in a place whereby I can really make a difference, whereby, you know, that experience was my ground zero, and it would never be like that again. It would always get better and better and better. Hence why I stayed in the same school for 19 years. And it's been such an incredible journey. And yeah, it's really tough. Sometimes I say when I talk to people, I say, you know, teaching can be 70% tough, screaming like you're ripping out your hair because you're trying to figure out how to get through to a child or how to communicate your subject. But then the other 30% or 20% are the golden moments, the moments which you can see the learning taking place, and all of your energies of setting up your systems and you know, planning a really engaging lesson, you see that come to fruition, and that just supersedes everything. You know, that's the best day ever, and there are many of those days too.
Right. It seems that indeed your life has been full of this kind of transformative stories, hasn't it? No, I'm a parent, so I am not a teacher, so I have no idea how teaching is, but I could imagine that it's quite challenging if you have small children in the room, and you have like 20 of them, and you have to lead the process of learning. But I do remember one thing that's something as a parent that is really amazing is like when you put a lot of effort into, you know, showing something to your kid, and suddenly you see that your child actually sees that and is able to actually do this, and you have this click moment that's just like, wow, now my child knows how to ski, or things like this. It's impressive, isn't it? It's the feel is like all this effort was actually worthwhile.
And it's well, one of my favorite days of the year is in the UK is in August, whereby the students' results, the GCSE results come out. And you just get to see their faces, and you see their faces of how happy they are when they open their envelope and they see the results. But what's really also quite amazing is seeing the teachers when they see the grades that the children have received as well, and being, you know, and seeing their pride and how emotional they are. Yeah, and it's really emotional, and because it's, you know, it's really nerve-wracking. Did the child do well in their examination? Did I do everything that I can? How could I've taught them even better? How, you know, what else could I've done? And just seeing them, you know, the teachers see their grades as well, and seeing how well they did, that's priceless as well. Yeah.
Can you tell us something? Yeah. Can you? Sorry, just sorry, I entered your word.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you tell us something about your school, maybe, to understand better the background that you're actually teaching?
Sure. So I've as you mentioned earlier, I've just now in the transformation of joining a new school. So my previous school, which I was teaching for 19 years, I was employed as the art teacher, and clearly I teach the best subject in the world. It's a subject which communicates in so many better ways and different ways to other subjects. And it's a subject whereby it's very inclusive. So everyone, regardless of their language skills, their cognitive abilities, they can participate, and they can experience joy, frustration, challenge, and that sense of sometimes just mindfulness of just being in that creativity zone of making something special. So I teach a subject which, you know, I just could not wait to, it had such an impact on me growing up. So it had, you know, I wanted to share that with younger people. And now I've moved into another school, and I have a role of a vice president of a special educational needs school. And it's my 4th week, and it's such a learning curve. I've gone from a mainstream school where there's 2,000 pupils, and now I've gone into a school whereby there's 260 people with complex special educational needs, all of which the curriculum is so individualized and bespoke. So it's a really different world. I actually sometimes feel that I'm learning a new language, maybe Mandarin on the go. But it's what I've noticed is how incredible my colleagues, the educators are, the teachers are, in terms of their patience and dedication in trying to achieve, trying to help a young person to achieve the next step, to make progress, to engage, to be stimulated, to be inspired, to feel nurtured through those walls. Yeah, and I just think I'm one of the luckiest person in the world just to have the opportunity to experience that as well.
Wonderful story. I just wanted to I'm going to follow up on the story that you have started with being an art teacher. I think that one of the greatest advantages of teaching art is that it's actually it kind of goes beyond languages. It brings people of different cultures, and it kind of allows them to flourish and speak the same language of art. And in a way, it actually allows you to see that every child is unique, yes, but at the same time, there's certain commonalities that are present in every child. What would be your take on this? Have you experienced any of this?
Daniel, I think you've hit the nail in the head. I think that's the beauty of art. There is so much diversity within the subject in terms of the media. So there are, you could do sculpture, you can do ceramics, you can do drawing, fine art, photography, filmmaking, sculpture, jewelry making, everything. All of this is different, and all of this one child can find their thing, their absolute niche. Now, I know that when I say drawing, everyone starts to panic, and adults too, and they'll say, I'm the worst drawer, and I can't draw. But there are different ways of drawing. And for me, what I find really useful is finding the artists that the young people can relate to, or bringing their culture. So teaching them about the arts of their culture, which sometimes, it would be touched upon, but the focus would once again be on the mathematics and the sciences, that maybe their cultural and heritage is not celebrated, the artifacts, the crafts from the beautiful traditions. And I think that's what's unique. It's such a individual and personalized subject. And where young people, they can just, having the ability to create something which is so different than anyone else in your classroom. And you can be sitting next to a child who is academically more advanced than you, but your work could be better. And that is the power of the arts. It's transformative, and it does have a ripple effect with a child.
I will share my personal story maybe here, because it's with art, all my art teachers know that I was really bad at it. I'm from a rural village, rural place in Poland, and my arts teacher knew that I didn't know how to draw. And it's true. Like I have a poor vision, and as a result of that, I'm not very focused. I was rather a dispersed child, and as a result of that, of course, this means that, well, in terms of art, I was not able to sit still for 45 minutes and do my drawing. But one day, our arts teacher came and she said, how about we going to use paint in any way you want? So what I did, I put all kinds of paints together in like balls of water, and I started to make stains on the paper. And I was so proud of it, because suddenly my way of expression, and it was really a beautiful painting. It was the first time that in the art class I was proud of what I've created, because it was sort of somehow corresponding to my type of character, and at the same time I was able to express myself, and ultimately it was really beautiful. And I think it's very powerful about teaching art, and I would agree with you that if I would be a teacher, art is a beautiful subject to teach.
So I have a question for you, Daniel. How old were you when that happened, approximately?
Maybe 9 years old. So I was pretty old.
Can you remember much else from your being at school when you were 9 years old?
Not much, no.
Exactly. The power of the art lesson, and the power of the teacher, the fact that she decided to speak to you through a different media. Yeah, brilliant.
Right. I wanted to ask you about this too, because, art has also the power of bringing people from different cultures. And you mentioned this a little bit here, that you have children. I mean, of course, you're calling us from the UK. And in the UK, you have a very diverse groups. I don't know if this is also the case of your school, but I mean, let's say multicultural. You mentioned here that people express their art in different ways. Did art anyway? Did you ever have an experience that art really helped those kids to integrate somehow in the country that they come to?
The question is how many stories can we fit into this half-an-hour show? I think that's it. I mean, it's yes. The answer is yes, obviously, because when you're doing art, you can do collaborating projects and you can organize your classroom to be doing collaboration work. And so when young people are working on a project together, there is great learning that's taking place there. And then you can introduce their cultures, their works, so maybe African art, Asian art, to them, Islamic art. And there is lots of learning and shared concepts which cultures do have, which young people bring in. And then the other thing, the other area is, of course, the fact that, many young people with special educational needs, this is one of the subjects where they can excel. And I could tell you hundreds of stories of young people who have got academically low ability, but through the arts have achieved very high standards and qualifications, have gone into universities, are doing a master's in one of the highest colleges in the world, still having those labels of either having special educational needs labels or some kind of disability. So it is about communication, and it is about being the vehicle of helping people self-express, engage, communicate, and connect with each other.
Yeah, it's correct. That's, that is what I would think about arts teachers. We are there to inspire and allow you to speak, to kind of express yourself through art. And that's, I think, it must be a very beautiful story to see in every child having his or her unique way of expressing yourself. And I must be.
And there's something else that is the beauty of being the art teacher. We are the slightly wild ones or weird ones in the school. We are the ones who sometimes dress different, have, strange clothes, always have paint everywhere on our clothes. So, we talk different, the music, the art, we engage in a different way. So there is something unique about the creative teachers as well.
Right. Look, thanks a lot for all these inspirations. But our talk is starting to be very sweet. So I'm going to ask you a rather tough question. What do you hate about teaching? Is there anything else that you actually dislike? Is there any, I don't know, work or workload that you actually hate as a teacher?
I think the workload that I hate being a teacher is the work that takes me away from teaching, takes me away from doing what I want to do for my young people. Obviously, there's lots of bureaucracy that is needed. And there's lots of new concept, new ideas, new research, which actually have been almost reinvented again. So there's lots of challenges in terms of the amount of pressure that we have. And again, the pressures that we have sometimes is not just about the bureaucracy, it's what's coming down. So targets. So your children must be at this grade at the end of the year. And sometimes that's not it's difficult when there are challenges that are coming into our classroom from outside. So there could be pastoral challenges, there could be social emotional challenges, there could be other issues that when that's into our classroom, it's almost a barrier that stops us from teaching. So I'm not sure if I'm being clear, but it's everything else that surrounds the child that is not about education. That is what frustrates me.
Mm-hmm. Is that a significant workload that you experience as a teacher? How much time does it take from you, from your?
I mean, it's huge. So, for example, you know, just for example, if I'm coming into school and I'm taught my lesson, I've planned my lesson, and all of a sudden there is a behavior incident in my classroom because a child has got really problematic experiences at home. They bring it into the classroom. I'm now having to deal with that problem. I may not be trained to be dealing with that problem, that level of challenge which that child is bringing, or behavior problems. And so as a result of that, I am delaying the progress and the learning of other children. So, you know, we are magicians in classrooms. It's almost like we're spinning so many plates and trying to make sure that every child is having the best experience. But there are challenges that are happening outside our classrooms, from homes, from society, from economic situations, that when it comes into our classrooms, we are the front-facing staff. We're the ones who are having to deal with it. And sometimes that's really hard, because it could be really emotional. Yeah.
That's very interesting. It's a very interesting phrase that you're using. We as teachers, we are the front face of the society. It's like if you are coming from, let's say, a migrant background, and you're coming to the UK, and your parents may not even speak English, and you come to a school, and suddenly, you know, the way the teacher teaches, the way teacher treats you is actually the way society will treat you. And it's very, I think it's a very powerful phrase, teachers being the face of the society, and a kind of a welcoming pack of the society. Now, what is, you know, I wanted to ask you a couple of things about policy here. Why do you think people don't go into teaching?
Yeah, there's loads of reasons, and they're all valid reasons. Many people are not going into the profession because they can see that sometimes the young people, society's young people, may be disengaged from learning, or there may be high levels of behavior which is maybe putting them off. They can see sometimes how teachers are exhausted in the classroom. They see how hard they work. They see what it's like to be a teacher, the marking, the planning. And is that desirable? No, it's not. You know, who wants to work 12 hours a day continuously, and work in a job where there's not much gratification? You know, no one comes up to you and says, well done, Andrea, well done for achieving that. That doesn't happen on a daily basis. We just get on with it for the sake of our young people, and because we know it's the right thing to do. So it's a job whereby you don't really have much gratification. It's a job whereby the people who are doing it are not happy all the time, who are dealing with really challenging situations like behavior. It's a job whereby it's not well paid across the world, and we know that. And there's some colleagues of mine who have not been paid for months and months and months, but are still teaching, are going in every single day because it's the right thing they're doing for their young people in that community. It's giving them a hope, and that's what they're holding on to. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, there's so many reasons of why people are not coming into the profession, and they're all valid because it's real. It is what it's like at the moment.
So you mentioned here gratification, you mentioned hardships related to the teaching profession, the workload that is quite excessive, the pay, you say the pay. I don't know how it is in the UK, but indeed in many countries in Europe and probably worldwide, the pay, if you compare it with other professions on the labor market, is humble, I would say. Maybe not in all countries, but in some, certainly. And as a result of that, you know, on a policy level, we have a significant shortage of teachers. We try to identify the reasons why is that so, and try to, you know, I think that lots of policymakers are trying to somehow change that and see what can be done. Do you have any magic formula of what could be done?
Well, for the first thing I think it needs to be acknowledged is the fact that there are many classrooms that are teaching the same way over the last 30 years, using the same textbook, the same resources for the last 30 years. Our young people have changed. They're not the young people that were in the classroom 30 years ago. Our children have got so much more influences from other sources, the internet, social media. They want to have a different type of learning. They want to be engaged in different ways. So if we are keeping our school curriculums, our school systems exactly how they were 30 years ago, then, you know, why would you want to be in that classroom? And another reason that it could be, Daniel, is because sometimes, I mean, I know it sounds very silly and it's not, you know, we shouldn't think about this, but schools should be environments, school buildings should be environments which should be stimulating, inspiring. The best technology should be in there. There should be the classrooms of 2040 should be the classrooms that our young people should be working, learning in now. And there are buildings that are collapsing, buildings that are not fit for purpose. And so, you know, why should our teachers work in those buildings? Why would I want to work in a building whereby I haven't got a desk, or it's raining and it's flooding and it smells and it's, you know, I'll get ill from it? Why should I have that working environment? And as a result of that, why should these young people be in those classrooms? So it's about investment. If you really want to make change the future of your societies, invest in education, as well as, you know, paying your teachers the fair rate, but also invest in their surroundings, the resources, their training, you know, what access they have to the best technologies, and train them, give them enough training to use that particular device. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, I'm really passionate because people say, why are they leaving? I'm saying, well, I know, well, you know, would you want to work in the school that you... Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. You know, why would I? When you see these amazing skyscrapers and what AI is doing and what technology, the advancement it's had in our world over the last 100 years, and yet we're still learning in the most archaic buildings, which are worn down, but right. they're good enough for children because we've been using them for the last 30 years. Well, that's rubbish. That's not acceptable.
Right. One day I actually went to London and I visited a school that was just built by one of the corporations as a gift, and it was like a corporate building, you know, with glass walls and stuff like this. And I saw teachers being like, you know, it's like you go to this school and you feel like in an Apple store, you know, it's like you are in the different century. And you have all kinds of technologies, you know, augmented reality, all kinds of screens, whatever. And interestingly enough, what I saw was like this kind of young teachers, you know, in white shirts, feeling like dignified professionals on the one hand, and doing something with a mission. And that's, you know, I understand what you're trying to tell me is that we need to have conditions to work and we need to feel well about what we do. And if we are in a poor 60-year-old building in which everything is falling apart and the water is leaking from the roof and so on, and we have to go there every day, and then we have, you know, we don't have any kind of interesting ways and we use the same textbooks for 30 years, then it's true that you feel a bit stuck in it, isn't it?
But it's flat. There's no inspiration. That
right.
how and as a teacher, you've got to be inspiring. You've got to, you know, ignite that spark in a young person to have that lifelong learning. But yeah, Daniel, you've hit, that's exactly what it's about. And I know it sounds really, you know, I know it sounds unprofessional, but why can't we be like that? Why can't we have those situations? Why can't we have those environments? And if we did, oh my God, the possibilities and the challenge and what will then come out of our rooms will be spectacular.
Right. No, it's something new, to be honest. I've been, you know, in these discussions on my professional reasons, because of my professional reasons for many years. And I think you're the first person that ever told me that we need decent working conditions in this sense, and in sense of, you know, a building, in sense of, you know, feeling well about our workplace and stuff like this. We often, you know, on the policy side, we discuss a little bit about salary and about working conditions rather as kind of a protective measures about teachers and so on, and the protect labor conditions and so on. But we don't really discuss that much about, you know, the infrastructure that you say. And And I think it's a very important point indeed. I wanted to ask you about COVID, because of course, you've been a teacher during the time of the COVID. I was a parent during the time of COVID, and I saw how teaching, well, in many countries was either not taking place or taking place very poorly. One of the reasons why we did that, and the reason why we actually experienced this, was because we tried to move the actual class into a virtual realm. What was your experience in that? How did your school deal with it? What was your experience as a teacher? Especially teaching art. Can you actually teach art with a Zoom call?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can, and I did. And I think what schools did was short of a miracle in terms of transforming a whole curriculum, a whole learning experience from being, immersive into being through a screen. And and some colleagues didn't have enough time to train up. Some colleagues weren't familiar with lots of different technologies, so it was very, very different. But it was, thank God, that in my, in our world, in my school, we went back as soon as we could. We didn't stay offline, or we didn't stay we didn't stay closed, as it were, for very long. Schools are meant to have young people in, and that's how it is. But teaching through, especially the young children, that was really difficult. And I was a parent, Daniel, and so I am a parent, I should say. And during that time, I had 2 young children being taught by their teachers online next to me, whilst I was also teaching online. And it wasn't great. It wasn't, I could see their frustration. I could see how amazing their teachers did their job. But it wasn't the learning experience that would have made the best for our young people. Schools are there. Young people need schools. They need to be with their peers. They need to be in an environment whereby they can socialize, whereby they can absorb information. And it's just like now, there's nothing, just going back to work in the workplace, it's so much better than working from home, as we know. But I hated it. I could not wait to go back into the classroom. But what I was really quite impressed with was how quickly I was able to change everything and skill up, as it were, with the language of technology. And there's still some lessons that I taught during those lockdown days, whereby I'm still using now in my classrooms, where I'm back to normal, as it were. So it wasn't always a bad thing, but it was an experience that I would not ever want to go back to.
Right. I think that, the COVID-19 really changed the entire environment of learning. And we took out our children from schools that are supposed to be learning institutions, and institutions where learning thrives. So everything about the school should be about learning, isn't it? Not just its staff, but also its building and devices and all kinds of materials. And suddenly we put them in an online realm, which was not prepared for that. And suddenly, teachers who were also trained to teach in person using all kinds of materials that you can use in person, suddenly you have to learn the basics of blended learning and online learning. And it's like, I have no idea how to do this. But is there anything positive out of COVID? You say, I would never come back to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think
any positives about this?
I think the use of technology has really transformed my practice. I think, the devices, so Zoom lessons and using Google Classroom, and, just the way that we were forced out of our comfort zone as teachers to embrace technology was brilliant when it worked. So when we had good Wi-Fi, when it worked really well. So that, there's some systems that some schools will have used or altered during COVID within their infrastructure, that they think, actually, this is a good system. This is, why did we not think of this earlier? So there's lots of ways. And do you know what? It's all about the learning. Sometimes when you are thrown in chaotic situations, good learning happens. You adapt, you problem solve, new ideas come up from that. And there's lots of resilience. And I think that was something else that I found out, how resilient educators were. And also, how passionate they were about their young people, about their classrooms, and how dedicated they were to trying their best. I have to tell you, I worked longer hours online than I've ever done in my life, because I was preparing new resources, new lessons, really making it as bespoke as I possibly could, trying to almost replicate the in school experience for the young people. So the work that was put in must never ever be underestimated from the colleagues during that time.
Correct. Correct. I just wanted to maybe ask you a follow-up question on all this, because you discussed, the training of teachers. Of course, the learning environment and the teaching environment has changed, and is sort of evolving nowadays, isn't it? It's like the teaching profession is continuously changing into being more a manager of learning process. What do you think about the training? You say that one of the problems within the teaching profession is that we actually are using textbooks for the same textbooks for 30 years. But is it also the case of teacher training? Is there something that should be changed with respect to the evolution of the profession then?
I think there's lots of things that could be changed. The investment in teacher training should be seen as a continuous cycle. It should not happen, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm qualified, therefore I know everything. No, that shouldn't be the case. There should be lots of continuous training opportunities created throughout the year, every academic year. There should be opportunities for teachers to meet other teachers, to work with other teachers, to collaborate with other teachers as well. I find that the best CPD I've ever attended, or the best training, is when it's been with another teacher or another practitioner who I've been able to see their practice. I also think there should be something about accountability as well. So in the UK, there is a system which is a very heavy cloud and a burden to us, and that's our expectorate. So there is an external expectorate that comes around called Ofsted, and they come and they judge, they give a formal judgment of the quality of a school, and inside that the teaching and all the experiences as well. Now it brings a lot of challenges to any school system and any school leaders when Ofsted do come. However, and it is quite, it is fierce and it's done in a harsh way, but there is a value in having an external body that can help with school improvement. So I'm not saying let's make sure that every single country has our form of Ofsted, but there should be a body that recognizes and supports the development of every school, so that there's consistency in schools, so that every school is not working within its own little world. They are working, and they've got an outward facing mind. They're seeing what is happening with other like schools for them. That's one thing I think which would make a huge difference in terms of helping to identify what areas of development are needed, and then to put programs in place for teachers to improve, so to develop. And there should be some kind of standards as well. So every teacher, like every doctor, they have an oath. Like every teacher, we should have some standards that we all agree to, that are across all the countries, and which we are committed to deliver. Because Daniel, there's nothing worse, and this is something which really upsets me, than seeing a colleague who's come into the profession who is really eager, doing their best, persevering, and has done a tremendous job in their classroom, whereas a teacher next door is sitting there, feet on the table, not engaged, the classrooms are right, and yet there's no challenge, and they're being paid, he's probably, or she's been probably paid even more. So I think there needs to be some kind of standard that we are held, and quality assurance. When that's in place, you watch and see how the retention and the desire to go into teaching will improve.
Right. I think it's really important, and the leadership of the schools is a very important topic, because indeed, I mean, the leaders and the entire culture of the school as a learning institution, as a place for innovation, as a place of trust where people can talk with each other, they can exchange, they continuously learn. That's the basic for a successful school. I think also, you know, that one thing I know about teachers is that one of the reasons why I want to be teachers is because they love learning. They kind of continuously want to improve, learn, discover new things, so they can later on give it to the kids. And yet at the same time we have, I think, a certain challenge that the career of the teacher is quite flat. So once you're a teacher, you're sort of getting there and you just do your job and so on. So I very much like your comment about, you know, this continuous development programs that are necessary and they should be done somehow among the peers to make sure that people can learn from each other, not only about, you know, new pedagogies, but also about practice in the classroom, about all kinds of things that are related to being a teacher, like dealing with parents, for instance, or answering them emails and stuff like this, and things that are emerging, to discuss the trends that every teacher will have to face in his her classroom. I have a final question to wrap it up. Thanks a lot for this. I wanted to ask you the most general question, I think, here of all. Imagine that you have now, I don't know, 1,000 young people that are considering to go into a teaching career. And they ask you, okay, am I good for this? What does make a good teacher? What kind of things a person have to be a good teacher, apart from being tough, for sure?
Not tough. You mean resilience? You mean resilient, not tough? Yeah. Yeah. The answer is very simple, Daniel. It's not answer this one. The answer is: do you like working with young people? Do you like, excuse me, working with the young generation? Beg your pardon. Sorry. I think that's the question. If you like being in a world whereby you are continuously dealing with young minds who and the language of young people, then you will enjoy it. Yes, you need to be resilient. Yes, you need to absolutely love your subject, love what you're doing, and love the idea of pedagogy and how to communicate to another person. And I think the final thing is you need to be comfortable with being selfless and almost a servant. So you are serving another human being. If you are happy with being in that mindset and knowing that everything you're going to do is for another individual, then you will be
fulfilling for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll have an excellent career and enjoy teaching.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thanks a lot for the inspiration. It was really great. Thank you for sharing all your personal stories. I think you certainly have a story to say, and I have been inspired myself as well. I wanted to thank our viewers. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like and comment. Today our discussion is about what does make a good teacher. Maybe you did have a good teacher, maybe you had a bad teacher. Tell us about it and share with us. I mean, education changes lives, and I think that today our story and our guests have showed us that education does change lives. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you to the viewers. All the best. Bye.